Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Frisco, Texas, as we wrap up our coverage of the 2015 Bison football team with another victory. North Dakota State makes history, becomes the first college football program to win 5 consecutive national championships in the modern era. The Yale Bulldogs did it way back in the 1880s. Big E covered that after NDSU blows out Jacksonville State 37-10. Along with Jeff Kolpack, Eric Peterson, and Mike McFeely, I'm Dom Izzo. All the question marks about Carson Wentz. Would he play? Would he be rusty? How would he look? That got answered about the 9-minute mark of the first quarter today, Jeff.
I thought he was pretty spot on some of his throws. I mean, his stats weren't eye-popping, 16 of 29, which is okay. 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions.
Picks, yeah.
But I thought he was just there. You know, he was your 2-year captain. He was your general coming back from being absent. And I just thought his presence was really meant a lot to this team.
Big E, the defense, which we've hammered on the entire postseason, does it again. It allows another season low for Jacksonville State. 41 points was the fewest amount of points they had scored over the last 5 games coming into today. They only get 10. The Bison defense forces 4 turnovers.
43 and change points per game in the playoffs. And NDSU over the 4 playoff games have allowed 216 yards per game. And in the era of, speeded up Bob Stitt style 100 plays per game, that's unheard of. 9 points per game, and it went from 229 total yards the first game, 221 in the second playoff game, 209 in the third one, and then 204 in the championship game to a team that's just been racking up unbelievable numbers and scored 62 points in the semifinals.
Mike, we were all in Missoula on August the 28th, and I think we were all shaking our heads like, well, we're not going to – what to expect with this Bison football team.
I was leading the charge after that game.
Yeah, and then October the 17th, we're like, oh, geez, maybe they'll have to play Thanksgiving weekend. Maybe they'll have to go on the road, and here we sit in Frisco again after another celebration.
We talk so much about NDSU and the style of doing things with emphasizing defense and all the great players they have. Yeah. How about a shout-out to the coaching staff for what they did defensively this year? We saw the game in Missoula, like you said. The team that was on the field today, doing what it did today, Nick DeLuca, Robbie Grimsley, all these guys, that is not even close to being the same team that was in Missoula. And that goes to more than one thing, but especially to coaching. They coached them up throughout the season. Kleiman and even some of the players told us this was going to happen. We'll get better. Just, everybody settle down. We'll get better. I didn't know they'd get this good. I mean, this is unbelievable, but they got better.
But head coach Chris Kleiman points out how it just all fits together. 40 minutes of time of possession again, and it was kind of a little joking, but it's easy to play defense when you're out there 3 or 4 plays and then go to the bench for 7 minutes and drink Gatorade. But the defense does a job of getting off the field, and NDSU's offense stays on the field, I believe. It ended up being like 11 of 17 on third down conversions today. I think at one point it was like 9 of 11 or 9 of 12.
It was an outrageous stat.
So when they needed to be on the field and possess the ball, they did that.
You look at the guys on defense, and this is the question mark you and I had way back in May when we were previewing this upcoming season about how this team was going to get better on the defensive side being so young. And we saw Greg Menard emerge. We saw Brad Ambrosius, a guy we thought that needed to step up. MJ Stump, Pierre G. Tucker, and Mike already mentioned DeLuca. The linebacker core I thought was tremendous.
Well, I think you can put those 3 linebackers right with Carlton Littlejohn, Beck, Olsen. You have to. I mean, statistically you can. DeLuca had a timely pick. He forced a fumble today. Yeah. That was one of the best defensive performances in a title game by a linebacker, too. I mean, just his overall game. So I think this 3, you can put right up there with any 3 they've had.
And you talk about some of the improvement. Robbie Grimsley early in this game went in the backfield and dropped Tremaine Pope for a 2-yard loss. He wasn't making that play in Missoula, and that just shows you a true freshman started the year as a true freshman, and now he's not playing like a true freshman. He's playing like a guy like Christian Dudzik was playing at the end of last season.
And think of the stretch, and Chris Kleiman pointed out in the postgame, he said this was the best 4-game defensive stretch I've seen. And that's
in playoffs.
In the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at that, and Eric is writing about it for Sunday's paper, but that 4-game stretch, unbelievable, the numbers that NDSU put up.
Let's go back to the start of this game because it almost seemed to me, and this is just my opinion, it looked like Jacksonville State was not ready to play this football game whatsoever. They looked dazzled. NDSU came out. Granted, they punched him in the mouth, Jeff, but it was 24-0 before Jacksonville State got off the mat.
Well, the question was asked during the week, does all that experience help NDSU being there? You know where the locker room's at. You know where the hotel room is at. You know the parade coming in and all the hoopla. You know the Friday routine. How is that going to help NDSU? And the response generally was, well, it'll help them till 11 a.m. Saturday. Right. I think we have to reevaluate that a little bit. I think it helped them in the first half. Maybe Jacksonville just was a little too new to it.
What do you guys make of that?
Although Jacksonville State head coach John Grosh did point out when you look at NDSU on film in the playoffs, it's different. And maybe it's just a matter when NDSU gets in these games, they can set a level that other teams aren't maybe ready to match right away. And it looked like Jacksonville State took a half to kind of get to that level.
But he also said, didn't he say, you and I were right there, we're preparing for Carson Wentz to play in the football game.
No, but I think what Eric means, and he's been spot on, is that when the lights go on in the playoffs, NDSU is just absolutely going 1,000 miles an hour from the first snap of the game. Jacksonville clearly was going 62 miles an hour from the first snap of the game. The other thing is there something to be said for being a little bit humble? Saying, you know what, we're maybe not the greatest team that FCS has ever seen, that you kind of got that sense that a lot of folks in Jacksonville thought that we had never seen a team like this before in FCS. And NDSU, for all the success they've had, Kleiman mentioned it after the game again today, we stay humble and hungry. And is there something to be said for that, to be able to keep your team just a little down? And
they joked about if Jim Kramer, the strength and conditioning coach, would let you were a national championship T-shirt. And DeLuca's like, that ain't happening. So that was pretty funny.
That's not going to happen. A word about Carson Wentz, Jeff. Granted, he only played 2 years, and actually a year and a half that we actually got to see him out there. He is on a flight tonight for California to begin now the process of his NFL career, but it was like a streaking comet that what we saw over the last year and a half of what he did at NDSU.
Yeah, he just has all the tools. Yeah. And, today it was interesting on Twitter. It's like these people didn't realize he was an NFL prospect. I'm sorry, the NFL scouts, they've known about him for a while. And now the next phase of his life, that's the way it is now. With these title games, Emmanuel took off right after the game. Marcus Williams took off right after the game.
John Crockett did last year,
I mean, there's no going back to Fargo and partying it up and, hey, maybe I'll start working out on Monday morning. No, you start right after the game.
You look at also Joe Haig got invited to the Senior Bowl as well, got a phone call late last night, so he and Wentz are both going to Mobile, Alabama. They'll work with Gus Bradley, the former Bison player and coach and current Jacksonville Jaguars head coach.
Yeah, and you get back to it, it just shows how this team buys into it. And maybe winning championships, you're more willing to do it, but Easton Stick won 8 games in a row.
Yeah.
Granted, Carson Wentz is the fifth-year senior, but he stepped aside and didn't say anything and just gladly handed the baton. Some of these running backs, if they're featured at some of these other places, maybe they could run for 1,500 yards a game. But it seems like the players on this team are willing to play their roles. And even a guy like Zach Vra, 3 catches today, didn't look very impressive, but on those 3rd and 5s, he gets you 6 yards. On a 3rd and 7, he gets you 8 yards. And then when they're pinned back at their 10-yard line late in the first half, he makes a nice 17-yard catch, which runs out the half to give instead of giving Jacksonville State a chance to score points.
And also, he was the guy where they had a penalty on. It was a key pass interference penalty that kept the drive alive.
Also, look at the ends of the spectrum here before we wrap it up. Cam Peterson, true freshman, kicks 3 field goals in the game after he had missed 6 of 7. And then the opposite end, 5th-year senior Jordan Champion, Jeff, never had an interception until today in his final game. He finally gets a pick.
Yeah, didn't Andre Martin have that same thing happen in a title game too? It's just maybe the spot to do it. Good for Jordan Champion. He's a good guy. He's a good kid and something to take, with another ring, right? You got another ring and finally the pick.
And Cam Peterson's kick at the time was a big kick, a 29-yard.
I thought they all were.
I mean, you're 1 of 7 heading into this game. Maybe you miss early. Maybe that creates a spark for Jacksonville State and a big play happens, but 3-0, it kind of got the thing rolling for NDSU.
Mike, it's hard now as we're sitting here to compare the other 4 teams where this one will rank, but I'll ask you anyway, where does this one stack up with the other 4? Because it looks like this run was way harder than the other 4.
Well, at the start of the year, I'll go back to that. I'll go back to the start of the year, though. At the start of the year, yes, this team was behind where the other teams were, but was this team ahead of a couple of the other teams at the end of the year? I would argue that this year's team was better than last year's team at the end of the year, right? I mean, the defense last year was on its last fumes, man. It was hanging out with its fingernails. This team just kept getting better and better and better. This defense, again, today was just outstanding. I mean, just fantastic.
And you'd think Kyle Emanuel, Carlton Littlejohn, Travis Beck, Marcus Williams, statistically, this defense in the playoffs was better than any of the previous 4. And at the start of the year, it's like,
never saw that coming.
What is this young defense going to do?
Well, there you have it, folks. Our 2015 coverage of the Bison now officially wraps up as North Dakota State with a big-time win over Jacksonville State. By the way, the cowboy hat, Harvest cowboy hat that you brought on the pregame show, undefeated, much like the gold helmets are 3-0, the gold jerseys 22-0, and the Harvest cowboy hat 1-0, yes?
When are you coming out with the chrome cowboy hat? That's what I'm wondering.
That's good. Hey, good idea. Thanks.
2016,
You know,
right?
the prop budget's got to get a little higher, though.
If I'm invited back next year, Coastal Carolina cowboy hat, is
Wow,
that possible
I
as
don't
well?
know. Hey,
Huh?
Coastal Carolina's big time in us. They're going to the
that's
FCS.
right. Yeah,
so
that's right. They
They're
left
moving
behind
up.
FCS,
So
yeah.
there you have it, folks. Thanks to everybody for watching, reading, listening. We always appreciate it. What a great year it's been. For Mike McFeely, Big E, Eric Peterson, my colleague Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. That's the Bison postgame show from Frisco.